Hi church, and welcome to Word of the Week. My name's Dave, and well, it was a very different Easter experience for many of us this year. But it was great to gather virtually together and respond and reflect to what our great God has done for us and the sacrifice that Jesus made. And I really hope that you were encouraged this Easter, wherever you were. What I'd love to do today is just offer you some encouragement for the week as we look at what I think is an absolutely incredible passage in the Bible. And this comes from the book of Romans. The book of Romans is written by the Apostle Paul. And today we're going to look at Romans chapter 8, verses 31 and verses 32. So just those two verses. But before we get there, I want to give you just a little bit of context here, because before Paul gets to this point, he's actually been talking about some really amazing truths that have been going on. Throughout this chapter, he's been saying to the Romans that when they're in Jesus, they have the Spirit of God dwelling inside of them. He's also been saying to them that they are co-heirs with Christ. And a third thing before he gets here to this verse is he's been saying that all the suffering, all the stuff they've been going through, all that stuff isn't worth comparing to the future glory that is going to be revealed to them, to those who are sons and daughters of God. And then we arrive at verses 31 and 32. And Paul here, he starts with a question. He says, "What then shall we say to these things? If God is for us, who can be against us? He who did not spare his own son, but gave him up for us all, how will he not also with him graciously give us all things?" Today I've just got three pieces of encouragement coming out of these verses for you. The first thing is that Paul says, if God is for us, then who can be against us? In all that Paul went through, he realized this truth. And once he got that truth, once he realized it, he got it. He understood that our God isn't a God who backs away. He isn't a God who leaves us in our most vulnerable of times. Rather, what Paul is saying here to us is that if God is for us, then he's going to look out for us. He actually wants to be involved with the things that we're concerned about. He wants to help us in every aspect of our own lives, not just in certain points, not just on certain days. And the great truth here is that you have the God of all creation, and he is for you. God cares deeply about you today. That's the first thing I want to encourage you with. Okay, that's number one. Number two, Paul goes into the start of verse 32 and he says, "He who did not spare his own son, but gave him up for us all." You see, God cares so deeply about you, and he is so much for you that he didn't spare his only son. He gave him up for us all, for every single one of us. And the great thing is that when we reflect on this at Easter time, it really just comes to this point where we realize that it is God who showed the world just how much he is for us by willingly giving up his son, who would take on our sin and ultimately take on our punishment and our death, so that we are able to be united with him. We are able to be co-heirs with Christ. And I found it worthwhile looking at this definition of what an heir is. What does it mean to be a co-heir with Christ? Well, it says that an heir is a person who is legally entitled to the property or rank of another on that person's death. Therefore, as co-heirs of Christ, We're actually entitled to all that he has because of his death. But of course, he's not still dead, is he? So we are a co-heir. We are not an heir. So those who believe in Jesus and those who accept him and believe that he was the Son of God who died and rose again on the third day, we're able to share in his future glory, in his goodness, in his riches. We're able to be co-heirs with Christ. And the final thing, the final piece of encouragement that I'd love to point out to you from this verse comes from the same verse, verse 32 in the back end. It says that he who did not spare his own son, but gave him up for us all, how will he not also with him graciously give us all things? How will he not graciously give us all things with him? Here, Paul is saying that because of God's grace, which is this free gift that he gives to us, even though we don't deserve it, because he freely gave his only son, the greatest gift for the world, because of that. And if God is willing to do that, then what Paul's saying here is, if he's willing to do that, then surely God is also going to give us everything else that we need in this life. Surely if he's for us, then he's going to provide what we need as we live out our lives, even right at this point in time, especially at this point in time. He's going to give us the strength we need to persevere when we're at home and all we want to do is go outside and get out and maybe see some people or go to a place that we haven't been for a while, check out a movie. He's going to provide in those moments when we might feel lonely or disconnected. In those times we know that God isn't distant. He is with us. He's going to be our comfort, and he can be our comfort. That, of course, doesn't mean that we stop loving each other. I mean, Jesus continues to show us and tell us the importance of being able to do that. And it's exciting to see the ways that we have been loving each other through this period of time. But as followers of Jesus, it all begins with him. He is all that we need, and he'll provide for us. All we have to do is come to him, to trust in him, rest in him, and follow him. So be encouraged this week that as our loving God is with you, may you trust in him. May you look to him today, because he is for us and he is all that we need. Have a great week, and we'll see you on Sunday for Church Online at 9 o'clock.